Got a new green screen. You know what that means? Dick fractals.
Dick fractals. Dick fractals. Dick fractals.
Well, I hope I edited that right, otherwise it's gonna look like dog shit. I'm Ben. This is On This Day in History. Today we're taking a look at June 13th, Friday the 13th. Nothing spooky actually happened on this day in history, unless you count regular plane crashes and terrorist attacks. But I don't like to talk about those because they make me sad. And will get me demonetized. Who am I kidding? I was never gonna be monetized. But let's get into it. June 13, 2018. Volkswagen has fined 1 billion euros for their emissions scandal, bringing its fine up to a total of $33 billion. So for the two of you left on the internet that haven't heard of Dieselgate yet, what happened was in the early 2000s, the US put out a new series of diesel regulations. So basically you've got gasoline engines and you got diesel engines. And believe it or not, diesel engines are actually way more fuel efficient and make way less CO2. So based off that two-box checklist, they're way better for the environment. And I know what you're thinking. Ben, I've seen a truck before. What's all that black shit that comes out of it then? Well, that is a combination of particulate matter, the black shit, and nitrogen oxides, or NOx. And then the NOx goes into the atmosphere to make yet again more black shit. Diesel engines definitely make way more of that than the gasoline ones. But the miles per gallon sticker on the side of the window is way higher, so people still want to buy them. Now, in the mid-2000s, the EPA is cracking down. Europe was also cracking down at the time, but right now the US standards are way stricter, so we're going with those. Also, f me, I'm a metric boy, but trying to convert between grams per mile and grams per kilometer is just the worst thing ever. The allowed upper limit for the nitrous oxides, the NOx, nitrogen oxides, those are different. The allowed limit for the NOx used to be 1 gram per mile. And then they drop it down to 0.07 grams per mile. So less than a tenth of what it used to be. I think the European equivalent, once you do all the confusing conversions, would have been like 0.7 grams per mile. So we're still doing like exactly like a tenth of that. Now these regulations are probably why you remember seeing a bunch of the black shit coming out of trucks when you were a kid, but hopefully less now that you're an adult. Unless there's like an 8-year-old kid watching, but like, kid, what are you doing here? I'm not a good role model. None of this stuff is interesting to you. You should be on TikTok. Go do one of those challenges, those seem fun. Anyway, so we're dropping this one kind of pollution down to like a tenth of what it used to be. Hey, score one for big government. And oh, look at that, all the industries still exist 15 years later. It's almost like regulations don't place undue hardships on corporations. And they could have just existed this whole time without Loraxing the fuck out of the world. Now, there's one more thing we gotta learn about before we move forward with Dieselgate. The NOx trap. One way to make diesel exhaust less diesely is with a NOx trap. It traps the NOx. But, and this is important, somehow it's some kind of magic backwards device where the more fuel you use, the cleaner it runs. And the better it is at trapping the NOx. Here's an infographic. Now to you astute viewers, and not that 8-year-old that hopefully already left. Less NOx is what the government, and also like trees and birds and shit, wants to allow cars on the road. And more miles per gallon is what the consumer wants when they buy a car to drive on the road. But the only way to reduce those emissions is to use more gas. So what's Volkswagen to do? Have a robot lie about it for them. They rig their cars to detect when they're on a little car treadmill for emission testing. At which point it just starts chugging down fuel to make the emissions lower. Allow me to demonstrate. Oh, environment. And then, when regular people are regular driving, it just switches back to fuel economy fuck the birds mode. Just shitting out poison. But those MPGs though. So, on paper, it's great. All the fuel savings? None of the dead eagles. Here's the camera. There we go. Volkswagen actually wins a bunch of awards for how great of a job it's doing. On paper. And that's where VW fucked up. Like how you shouldn't rate yourself too high when your bullshit company gives you a self-evaluation for your performance. That's when the European wing of the ICCT shows up, the International Council on Clean Transportation. Remember how I mentioned that the limits in Europe and the US were different and the US's were lower? So the ICCT's like, holy shit, Volkswagen is crushing it. From like 2009 to 2015, they're just selling these rolling green mobiles. No poison coming out of those. Why can't we as Europeans do the same thing? How do we get our emissions so low? What's VW's secret sauce? And then they did some independent testing and found out that VW's secret sauce was lies. And instead of a clean .07 on the gimme scale, they're actually doing 40 times that. So this other much larger number that's even worse than the old limit of 1 gimme. Naturally, Volkswagen's response was, "What? That's crazy." Until finally admitting it a year later after that worked on literally no one. And then just every country went to town on them in court. Well, I guess that about wraps up this segment on Volkswagen's crimes against the world. And oh wait, what is that at the bottom? Monkeygate. Now, immediate concern, is this going to be racist? No, it's horrible in a different way. So apparently, VW, BMW, and Mercedes financed a research group, which then financed a study. So clearly not specifically any of their faults then. A study where they just gassed monkeys with diesel fumes to prove that they were safe. This is some 18th century phrenology level shit here. The study was first reported on by the New York Times. But I don't have money for that, so I read about it on CNN Business. Please subscribe. I need money. So, what kind of research center would perform such an atrocious thing? Glad you asked. The Loveless Respiratory Research Institute. Loveless, the bad guy from the Wild Wild West. Mr. Four of a kind always beats a pair, Mr. West. Could it have been that he was talking about lungs in respect to their ability to inhale diesel fumes? Anyway, so their plan was to gas monkeys with the fumes from the lying VW cars. But again, they were using the fake numbers and not the real ones. But it was 2014 by then, so everyone should have known those were the fake numbers, which means they were just gassing monkeys for no tangible reason. According to one of the scientists, you shouldn't have worried because the monkeys were shown cartoons during the hours of their testing to keep them calm. I mean, sort of feel like maybe all the carbon monoxide would have had the major calming effect there. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a scientist sponsored by 3 of the largest car corporations in the world. Before we go on, I feel like I need to point out, while I was calling out VW the whole time, Jeep, Ram, and Mercedes have all been caught doing this exact same thing. Basically, every other major car corporation has also been accused of doing this, with some to a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that they might have actually done it. The emissions cheating, not the monkey murders. It'd be weird if they all did that too. June 13, 2010, the Japanese Hayabusa spacecraft lands on an asteroid, grabs a sample, and leaves, like a stalker gingerly grabbing a lock of your hair as you walk by. What's notable about this is that it's the first time in history that there is a spacecraft specifically designed to land on and then fly off of an asteroid. Some of you may have heard the asterisk in there. The first spacecraft to actually land on an asteroid was the Near Shoemaker in 2001. Near being an acronym and Shoemaker being the scientist it was named after. Not that the craft almost became a cobbler and then went to space as its fallback career option, as I had originally believed. The Near Shoemaker. The Near Earth Asteroid Rendezvous Shoemaker. Its full name. But NASA scientists only call it that when it's in trouble. Its original mission was to fly around, check out a bunch of comets and asteroids, and then end up orbiting Eros, the jewel of the belt. That was a The Expanse reference. And then, having finished its mission and hanging around Eros, NASA was kind of just like, fuck it, why not? And then, as what I assume was part of a water cooler bet, decided to land the craft that had never been designed to land on Eros. And January 2001, they successfully did it. Which is what I wish I could say anytime I crashed my car into places it wasn't supposed to go. June 13th, 2002. The US withdraws from the Anti-ballistic Missile Treaty it signed 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Oh my god. The name's confusing. It wasn't against ballistic missiles, it was against things against ballistic missiles. It wasn't an anti-ballistic missile treaty. It was an anti-ballistic missile treaty. I can explain. So ballistic missiles are for when you want to terminate or Judgment Day a playground and the country surrounding it, turning it into a giant crater that makes those clicky sounds. And anti-ballistic missiles are the things you fire at the ballistic missiles because that wouldn't be ideal for your weekend. And this treaty set a cap on the number of anti-ballistic missiles the US and the Soviet Union would be allowed to have, which sounds strange on the offset, but it was intended to reduce the pressure to build more nuclear missiles for deterrence reasons. The reason being, if people had like 1 million anti-ballistic missiles, you would then in turn make more than 1 million regular ballistic missiles to defeat them. At which point they would make more anti-missiles. And then you would make more missiles. Extrapolate to infinity, and all of a sudden there's no more room on the Earth because there's so many f***ing missiles everywhere. But, hypothetically, if they just had, I don't know, 2 anti-ballistic missile complexes with a maximum of 100 missiles each. Just spitballing here. You wouldn't need to have that many more nukes. Sort of like telling the octopus you're about to fist fight, hey, I'm just gonna wear the one helmet so you don't need all 8 swords. June 13th, 2000. Then current and now former president of South Korea, Kim Dae-jung, has the first ever inter-Korea summit with North Korea. First president to drop by for a visit since 1945. When I first saw former president of South Korea, my immediate knee-jerk reaction was, is this guy currently in prison? Because I don't know if it's something in the water. Forget about race, socioeconomic status, and mental health issues. One of the strongest statistical indicators of someone ending up in prison is being the president of South Korea. Seriously, it's like half of them. Kim Dae-jung is not currently in prison, and honestly, it seems like he was one of the good ones. Anyway, the DMZ meet and greet was pretty historic and succeeded in netting him a Nobel Peace Prize, as well as reuniting a bunch of families separated by the war in the DMZ 55 years ago. For 11 hours, and then sending them back the way they came. I thought maybe they get to move back to good Korea, but apparently no. The whole thing just ran on shitty Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest rules. They also agreed to open up the Kaesong Industrial Region, which is a factory owned by the Hyundai Corporation, among others. It is operated in North Korea and staffed by predominantly North Korean citizens, with the stated goal of using the lower prices of North Korean labor to compete with Chinese manufacturing. Which to me sort of just feels like a kind of cross-state sanctioned sweatshop, staffed by people that don't really have a choice about being there. Considering that previous North Korean punishments for not doing what you're told include being executed by an anti-aircraft cannon. Plus side, because of the confusing geopolitical landscape, Korean companies don't have to pay tariffs on goods manufactured there because they're kind of the same country, sort of. Sort of thought this would be a fun one, but maybe the next one's better. June 13th, 1999. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is won by BMW. For those of you, much like me, that have never heard of this before, Le Mans, which I believe is French for The Mans, is a car race that takes place in The Mans, France. It occurs in a 24-hour period where they race to see how far a single car and a single The Mans, plus 2 backup The Mans, can drive in a circle. It's not like Cannonball Run across Europe. They're not like ending up in Egypt or anything cool. It's just a circle. There is also the Petite Le Mans, a shortened 10-hour version of the race that takes place in America. I assume probably for our shorter attention spans. I want more beer. Where was I? Driving cars in a circle. The Big Boy Le Mans, the 24-hour one, takes place in June. As you may have guessed, on account of it being today. Happens in June in the middle of the day, I assume, so the drivers can just be as uncomfortable as possible. There's probably like a dedicated crew member to just unstick the driver between laps. Moose Daddy's working. Moose, do you want to come in? I don't think you're gonna want to be in here. Jesus. Hey, hi. Oh, it's the rain. You're scared of the rain. Oh yeah, no, I'm scared too. I'm really scared it'll get picked up on the microphone. I'll hide under the bed. It's my cat. It's still him. Here's a fun fact. The 1967 Le Mans was won by Dan Gurney and AJ Foyt, whose name I may be pronouncing wrong. They parked their car with what I could only assume was just a passenger floorboard full of piss bottles at that point, and got on stage. And being on stage, they saw sitting in the front row with several journalists, as well as Henry Ford Jr., all of whom had been talking mad shit about them before the race. So they were given their celebratory bottle of champagne, at which point Gurney decided it'd be really funny to just shake the fucker up, pop it open, and just spray the entire front row. Thus instilling the tradition of 50 years of very confusing drinking and driving messages. June 13, 1983. The Pioneer 10 spacecraft became the loneliest robot ever made, as it passed Neptune and just left the solar system, becoming the first space probe to hit deep space. We're talking space here. And along the way, it won an Emmy. Dead ass. The Emmy awarding, the Emmy award winning, the Emmy award winning, the Emmy cricket. The Emmy award. The Emmy award-winning Pioneer space probe won for its live broadcasts of Jupiter in 1973. I wonder which space probe had to get snubbed that year. I bet it was the Soviet Vera 7. It was the Cold War, we were never gonna let them win. The Pioneer 10 also had one of these bad boys bolted to the side, courtesy of Carl Sagan. For you younger viewers, not the 8-year-old. Gross oversimplification here. Carl Sagan was basically Bill Nye the Science Guy for the 70s and 80s. If Bill Nye was really into smoking weed and talking about aliens. I know it sounds like I'm describing Joe Rogan here. I swear he wasn't Joe Rogan. So Sagan wanted this bad boy on the side for when it hopefully was picked up by aliens in the future. It's essentially just pictures of us naked and then directions to our house. Eventually, if it is found, aliens are just gonna be like, oh, humans, the horny ones. Yeah, let's not go there. They're gonna try and f us. Time for some happy birthdays. June 13th, 823. Happy birthday to Charles the Bald. The Holy Roman Emperor was born. His successor, Charles the Fat, was born in 839. Also on June 13th. Also named Charles. Charles the Bald, Charles the Fat. I don't know what's up with these names. Did they ask for these titles on purpose? Or is it just like what we do with our friends now? Hey, I'm gonna go meet Charles at the bar later. Wanna come? Which Charles? Fat Charles? Nah, Bald Charles. Okay, sure. Is anyone else going to be there? Yeah, Devante said he'd probably come too. Wait, which Devante? We only know one Devante. But then they wrote it down in history books forever. June 13th, 1773, mind freak Thomas Young is born. I say mind freak because he was like really smart. He didn't do magic. He was. Embrace yourselves here, guys. A British polymath who made notable contributions to the fields of vision, light, solid mechanics, energy, physiology, language, musical harmony, and Egyptology. He's one of the dudes that translated the Rosetta Stone, among like all of those other things. Also figured out how light worked. Anytime I see a guy that's like invented or discovered that much stuff like that far back in the day, my initial reaction is just, man, people were dumb as shit back then. I could have been a scientist. I could have told you about gravity. But like all the scientists back then just grabbed all like the easy, low-hanging discovery fruits. There's only the hard stuff left. But no, I definitely could not have translated the Rosetta Stone. I couldn't even handle Rosetta Stone Spanish. That's the easy one. You want to say sandwich in Spanish? It's just sandwich. June 13th, 1864. Dr. Dwight Bryan Waldo was born, the first president of Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Serving from 1904 to 1936, he was known for both his tough love approach, but also allowing women and minorities to attend the college, which he definitely didn't have to do back then, so like, pretty solid dude. And, thanks to the website, findagrave.com, I'd bookmark it, but I don't want to end up on a list. We know he's buried under the college's Heritage Hall cornerstone. So, quick trip to Google Maps and hey, we did it! We found Waldo. He's there. Oh, holy shit. June 13th, 1953. Tim the Cocaine Man Taylor is born. Almost you are still here. You wanna come out? You wanna stay in? I think the rain's gone. You wanna be on the internet, buddy? Okay, but I gotta talk about Tim Allen. Gotta talk about Tim Allen for a little bit. We're up. Anyway, Tim Allen was born in 1953, June 13th, and he goes on to attend, believe it or not, Western Michigan University. Full circle. Graduated in 1976. And then, 2 years later, and 10 minutes down the road, he's arrested at Kalamazoo International Airport with 1.5 pounds of cocaine. So, automatic life sentence there. He later on got it bumped down to 3 years by just ratting on all the dealers he knew. I'll pick you up. Oh, here's my cat. He doesn't like being picked up. Sorry, Moose. Oh. You're okay with it. Obviously, part of me is like, boo, snitching. But another part of me is like, I wouldn't want to go to prison. Would I do the same thing in his position? But the thing is, I don't want to go to prison so much that I just wouldn't traffic 1.5 pounds of cocaine. So who knows? Oh man, speaking of the 70s and questionable life choices, June 13th, 1974, Steve-O is born. Okay, you do want to go out. All right. Whoa, whoops. I'm gonna close the door once you go, though. All right, that's the choice you made. Meow. Goodbye now. At 6 months old, his family moves to Brazil for work. And apparently his first words were in Portuguese. So, Steve-O's bilingual. At 2 years old, his family moved to Venezuela, and he learned fluent Spanish. So, Steve-O's trilingual. The guy who drinks beer from his ass is trilingual. I'm just stupid in one language. Is it because I just drink the beer with my mouth like a normal person? 大家好，我是地球大哥，我们刚才结束生日快乐的通知，现在要开始生日快乐的通知。我屁眼好痛。All right, I'm going to stop doing that bit now just because I know that animating all those subtitles in is going to be a different kind of pain in the ass. Anyway, happy death days! June 13, 1645, happy death day to Japanese super samurai Miyamoto Musashi, the Bodor guy. He passes away, ironically, after all the people he stabbed to death in the lungs. He is in turn stabbed to death in the lungs by cancer. I don't really know what irony is. June 13th, 1861, Henry Gray from Grey's Anatomy dies. June 13th, 2010, the Jimmy Dean sausage guy, Jimmy Dean, passes away. Oh, this one's a recent one. June 13th, 2023, Cormac McCarthy, the author, passes away. Now, not to speak ill of the dead, but I don't think I like The Road. Like, I get it, the apocalypse sucks, and it's a giant bummer. But the book could have been like 100 pages shorter and just kept all the same plot points, and we would still understand that the apocalypse sucks and it's a giant bummer. Also, apparently June 13th is International Albinism Awareness Day. Apparently we say persons with albinism now because the other way might be a slur. I don't know, it's their day. Just roll with it. And yeah. Bill. And yeah, that's it for today's On This Day in History. Maybe like the video. I mean, if you stayed this long, you probably don't hate it. Or throw a little subscribe my way if you're feeling real generous. Either way, just leave a comment about like fucking anything, honestly. The little notification bell for when I get comments just feeds endorphins straight into my brain. And brain daddy hungry. The little notification bell I get from comments just feeds endorphins straight into it. The little notification bell I get from comments just feeds endorphins straight into my brain. And brain daddy hungry. Yes, Moose. And brain daddy hungry. Stop meowing. I gotta say one word. Just let me say one line, and I'm done. And brain daddy hungry. You motherfucker. Okay, you want to come back in? I thought we talked about this. Yeah, you're back in. Okay. And brain daddy hungry. Yeah, got in between. Okay. Then current and now former president of South Korea. Korean names are so hard. Kim Dae-jung. Actually, it wasn't so bad. Kim Dae-jung. Because forget about race, socioeconomic. Oh my God. Forget about race, socio. You can do it. You can say this word. It's not a very difficult one.